Two people walk into the same bank on the same morning and sign for the same $100,000. One of them walks out with a burden they'll carry for 7 years. The other walks out with an asset that pays the loan off by itself and hands them a profit. Same bank, same money, same paperwork. The only thing that changed was what the money was pointed at. And almost everything you were taught about debt, that it's dangerous, that it's a trap, that good people avoid it, was advice built for the first customer and quietly ignored by the second. Now let me be honest with you. Debt is not your friend. For most people, most of the time, the warnings are correct and they've saved a lot of lives. But the warnings are incomplete. They describe one kind of debt so loudly that most people never learn there's another kind, and the gap between those two kinds is where an enormous amount of wealth quietly gets built. So let's build it from the ground up, because once you see the actual mechanism, you'll never look at a loan the same way again. Here's the whole thing in one sentence. There are two kinds of debt, and they behave in completely opposite directions. The first kind takes money out of your pocket every month and gives you nothing back. The second kind buys something that pays you more than the debt costs. That's it. That's the entire distinction. It's not about the interest rate. It's not about the size of the loan. It's about which direction the money flows after you sign. Picture two people who both borrow $20,000 this afternoon. The first buys a car. The moment they drive it off the lot, it starts losing value, and every month for the next 5 years, they make a payment on a thing that is quietly becoming worth less. They pay, and at the end, they own something worth a fraction of what they borrowed. The second person borrows the same $20,000 and buys a small piece of equipment for a business, say a van for a cleaning company. That van hits the streets every day and pulls in more revenue than the monthly payment costs. So the payment gets made by the van, not by the person. And when the loan is finished, the person owns the van outright and keeps everything it earns. Same $20,000, same signature. One of them ate money for 5 years. The other one fed its owner. Now stay with me, because here's where the rich do something that sounds insane the first time you hear it. They deliberately borrow money when they could easily pay cash. Ask most people why, and they'll guess it's a tax trick or something shady. It isn't. It's simpler, and it's mathematical. If you can borrow money at 6% and put it into something that reliably returns more than 6%, then every dollar you borrow is producing a positive spread. That difference is your profit, and crucially, it's profit on money that was never yours. That's the entire game. It's the same reason a bank exists. It borrows from depositors at a low rate and lends it out at a higher one, and lives on the difference. The wealthy simply run the same play in their own lives. And this is where it gets interesting, because it explains something that confuses everyone. Why does a person with millions of dollars still take out a mortgage? They could write a check. But if the mortgage costs them 6%, and the money they didn't spend on the house is invested and earning more than that, then borrowing was the cheaper choice. They didn't take the loan because they lacked the money. They took the loan because keeping their money working was worth more than owning the house outright. There's a second reason, and it's the one nobody talks about at dinner parties. Leverage. Say you buy a rental property for $400,000. If you pay all cash and the property rises 10%, you've made $40,000 on $400,000, a 10% return. But if you put down $80,000 and borrow the rest, and the property rises that same 10%, you've still made $40,000. Except now, it's $40,000 on the $80,000 you actually put in. Same building, same market, same year. The borrowed money multiplied your return. That's leverage, and it is the single biggest reason real estate has made more ordinary people wealthy than almost any other asset. Now, I have to give you the other half of this honestly, because leverage is not a magic trick, and I'd be doing you real harm if I stopped there. Leverage multiplies in both directions. If that same property falls 10% instead, the all-cash buyer has lost 10% of their money. Uncomfortable, survivable. The leveraged buyer has lost $40,000 of their $80,000, half their money, while still owing the bank every cent of the loan. That's the part the highlight reels leave out. Debt doesn't create returns. It magnifies whatever was already going to happen, good or bad. Which means using it well depends entirely on being right about the asset, and nobody is right every time. So the rules the wealthy actually follow are far more boring than the mythology. First, never borrow for something that loses value and produces nothing. That's the rule your parents gave you, and it remains undefeated. Second, only borrow when the thing you're buying produces more than the debt costs, and calculate that with pessimistic assumptions, not hopeful ones. Third, never leverage so hard that one bad year ends you. The people who blow up aren't the ones who used debt. They're the ones who used so much of it that they had no room to be wrong. Survive the bad year, and leverage works for you across the good decade. So let me leave you where we started, with 2 customers and the same $100,000. The difference between them was never intelligence or connections or a secret the bank keeps for special clients. It was one question asked before signing. Does this money buy something that pays me or something that charges me? That's it. That's the whole divide. Most people are never taught to ask it, so they learn one rule, debt bad, and carry it their entire lives. It protects them from the worst outcome, and it also quietly closes the door on the mechanism that built most of the wealth around them. You don't have to borrow anything. But the next time you see a loan, yours or someone else's, ask which direction the money flows after the ink dries. Because once you can tell the two apart, you stop seeing debt as one thing to fear and start seeing it as a tool that's dangerous in one direction and powerful in the other. If this changed how that word lands for you, subscribe. The next video breaks down the exact math of how borrowed money turns into wealth, step by step on the board. I'll see you there.